Okay, let's put this teleprompter to good use. Am I here going to look weird on the green screen? Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. Welcome back to Crazy Thoughts, the show where I deliver my crazy thoughts on some crazy games. Time is an illusion and we are none the wiser for it. That said, you might see a few more of these than you have in previous years. Emphasis on might. We're a quarter of the way into 2025 and things are not looking bright in many directions, but I have been pretty busy with the video game playing as of late, and well, I wanted to talk about them. In case you need a refresher, these are just games that I have been playing as of late. They might be from this current year, or even the previous year, or even the past 30 years, just whatever I have been playing that I took a particular interest in. And the first one we're talking about is a long-awaited follow-up to an entry that we had in the 5th episode, 2.5 years ago. Time is an illusion and we are none the wiser for it.
Digital Devil Story, Megami Tensei 2.
It's always interesting to see just how far a series has come and its roots from there. And can't wait to get to the second one in 5 years. Well, it didn't take 5 years to get to it. It only took 5 years to complete. So a couple years back, I had mentioned to y'all that I wanted to go through every single Megami Tensei game that I could possibly go through. And I started that journey with the first NES title and the first game in the series, Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei. An admirable starting point for the series and an admirable RPG by itself, mired in the trappings and irritations of confusing mazes and annoying quirks like spells that lowered your level. Yes, I know that's not uncommon for some RPGs, but that's still insane to me. Am I insane? I might be. But now we have finally arrived to the sequel, Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei 2. DDS MT2 was released for the Famicom in 1990 and brought back most of the original team with a few new additions. Most notably, the character and demon designer who would go on to work on nearly every subsequent entry in the Megami Tensei series, Kazuma Kaneko. But what's more interesting right away is that it broke off from the source material into its own narrative, expanding beyond its simple premise of high school kids stuck in a computer and having to go through a bunch of mazes to kill the devil, into a grander tale about high school-aged kids needing to traverse across the ruins of post-apocalyptic Japan and going through several towns and buildings and even the underworld and more mazes to kill God. You also get a gun and a sweet robot arm. It's pretty sweet. For real though, Megami Tensei 2 is a big improvement over the first game, which is pretty funny because you start out by playing the first game again before it zooms out into that wider narrative. It's no longer just you and girl, it's now you, your best friend, your best friend's girl, and girl. And now there are characters with their own struggles and bustling casinos, intrigue, betrayal, actual plot. There are even choices that affect the overall story and shift what kind of ending that you get, with this new setting leaning itself into the more philosophical and religious themes that were hinted at in the first game, but not as prevalent as they were here. And it pulls it off in some pretty surprising ways. Like, there's a reason that both of these games were never localized. With that said, it is a little silly that getting the good ending hinges on you not killing a frog, but hey, they expanded the complexity of the demon fusion as you can now combine 3 demons at once, and those choices that you make can affect which demons that you can recruit. And oh my god, the music in this thing, man. I didn't think the Famicom or the NES was capable of sounds like these. It is crazy what a 3-year difference makes. Sadly, while there are some nice quality of life upgrades, like saving now being possible, the harsh difficulty and the confusing as hell mazes are still here, and present, and annoying, and again, it's partially my fault because I stopped playing a month or 2 into it, and I didn't pick it back up until about half a year later. Oops. In any case, I like the story beats now that the game actually has one, although the game's world can feel a bit too loose with its various cults and entities just doing whatever the hell they want until you go and wreck their shit. And that certainly gets long in the tooth by the end, so I think a tighter focus for the next entry would do the series very well. But it is the year 1991 after all, and so we can just only hope that they will make a follow-up that will fulfill the potential that this series holds. Because this is a very, very good foundation to be built off of, and a pretty decent RPG by itself. If you were to play either of the original games, I would definitely recommend it over the first one. Or you could try the Super Nintendo remakes that came out in 1995 and polish both games up a bit while adding in some of the quality of life elements from the Shin series. But how would I know this? Because it is only 1991, right? Yeah. Harmonic reflux? Oh wow. I think this is the first time we've talked about this franchise on this channel. In a review format. In a non-shitpost review format. Sonic the Hedgehog is a series that I have been interested in for as long as I have been interested in video games, and is a series that I have a very, very weird relationship with. On the one hand, I have played several of the games in the franchise, and many of the internet friends I have made are heavily involved in the Sonic community, so I see something about the guy several times a day. I'm always exposed to Sonic the Hedgehog. On the other hand, I've only finished 6 of them, including this one, and I've become more passive with the series as the years go by. Like, being involved in that community has allowed me to be on the pulse of new video game developments, but I've been lax with getting deeper into the series itself. Like, no real reason for it. I just never become a die-hard fan. It's also a difficult series to talk about at length if you want to discuss it in a manner that hasn't already been done to death, but I wanted to talk about Generations because A, the remaster featuring the new Shadow campaign came out last fall, and B, I've never played this. Yes, you heard me right. The 20th anniversary gem released for 7th Gem hardware and the 3DS. I skipped it completely. Completely went over my head. Sonic Forces though? I could not get enough of that. I love me some Forces. Had the Wii version not been canned, maybe I would have received the same gimped experience that I got with Unleashed, which I haven't completed either, but that just ain't how the Chaos Emeralds rolled for me. So this remaster certainly piqued my interest, but I didn't get the remaster. I got the original PC version. And now, with Sonic having finally turned 20, because it is the year 2011, I finally got a chance to see just how great this game was. And oh my gosh, it certainly was pretty good. Yeah, it was a pretty good game. Now, I wasn't joking earlier, I have played Forces before this game, and I bring it up because both of them have a kind of similar approach to the past and present Hedgehog platforming mechanics and junk. They just don't have the custom character that Forces does. But I wasn't even thinking of Forces while playing Generations. In fact, Forces just kind of like came and went through my brain hole. I beat that thing in a single day and I have not thought about it since. And this game completely overwrote any of the tiny fragments of memory that I had with that thing. It is that good. Or at least much more memorable. But separated from any of the other Hedgehog games, Generations does a great job of mixing the two classic and modern styles during its trip down memory lane, to the point where I did feel motivated to replay them over and over and over again in order to get that damn S rank. The controls made my thumbs ache a little bit more than they probably should have, but both Sonics felt pretty smooth to maneuver outside of a few jank moments, and well, it's Sonic the Hedgehog, that just comes with the territory. And I can't even think of any individual level that I thought was bad. Maybe the colors level, because I'm just not a fan of the Wisp power-up that it chose, but once I figured out how to properly use it, it was pretty smooth sailing from there. Obviously, the likes of the City Escape and Rooftop Run remixes were very much my cup of tea, but I enjoyed levels like the Sky Sanctuary stuff as well. I did have some niggles, like outside of the perfect chaos fight, I didn't care for any of the bosses, as I felt that they dragged on just for a little bit too long, and many of the side missions were very annoying. Don't get me started on the character-centric stuff. It's it's ridiculous. But outside of that, I really enjoy Generations. I can't wait to play it again with the remaster and catch up with all those cool kids when I get to Shadow Generations by the time my spine disintegrates. Oh, it's already happening. So I've been reading through a bunch of older gaming magazines as of late, partly for research purposes, but partly because I wanted to go through every single issue of the magazines that I used to read when I was a kid, specifically Nintendo Power and Electronic Gaming Monthly. It also doubles as a long-term palate cleanser after the 2024 video. And a response to 2025 not looking much better. Anyway, earlier issues that the Nintendo Power magazine had covered were many of the NES beat-em-ups, specifically a little game from Konami called The Adventures of Bayou Billy. You play as the titular Billy and wade through the bayou with the hopes of rescuing your girlfriend from some asshole. And while it does have the standard beat-em-up punches and kicks and yeehaws, what intrigued me about this one was the variety of playstyles that it had, mixing in the beat-em-up levels with a few gunfights that make use of the NES zapper, and an impressive-looking driving segment where you drive around avoiding rocks and cars and helicopters dropping grenades on Billy's poor bayou ass. How could something like this, especially from Konami, be so easily forgotten? So I bought myself an NES control deck and the Bayou Billy game pack, ready to crush these goons. You can't prove that it didn't. And one level into the game, I realized why it had been forgotten. Like, this thing is tough. Really tough. I tried to play older games like these on their own terms, but there's a point where difficulty stops being fun. And when it takes almost 10 hits for a single one of these goons to go down, that point comes pretty quickly. The aforementioned limited nature of the fighting maneuvers and the iffy hit detection certainly didn't help matters either, so I had to resort to the strategy of constant jump kicks to try and avoid enemy attacks, and even then, it barely got me through the next few stages. And the shooting stage was okay, and the emulator allowed me to use the zapper was surprisingly lenient with my crappy aim, so I got through it after a couple of tries, but once I got to the even tougher driving stage, like, I'm talking about one hit destroys your Hummer and your life, tough, and you got all this shit you gotta avoid, tough, I had to break out the Game Genie. Now, I only did infinite lives, so I was still dying constantly, and while the game was not quite as annoying, and I could finally appreciate the cool-ass visuals and the kick-ass music, it still got pretty annoying by the end, especially with that final boss. At the very least, they didn't carry the multiple endings over from the Japanese version, just the one where you get to save your lady. So yeah, overall, it does have its merits, and playing it was a nice break from the various modern games and occasional retro RPGs that we have been covering on this show. But Bayou Billy's just too tough for his own good. Maybe tweaking the American version of a game to be more difficult isn't a great idea, fellas. Because yes, this is the year 1980, and I am an angry gaming magazine critic. As you may be able to tell from the thumbnail and title of the video, the rest of this is going to be dedicated to my experience with Half-Life. I participate in a book club kind of dealio in one of the Discord servers for a podcast that I follow. It's Crub. It's Crub. What else would it be? And one of the games that had been chosen to be played was Half-Life 2. It was free on Steam for a little bit during its own 20th anniversary celebration, so why not? And for this celebration, they got rid of episode 1 and 2 on the Steam store and just packaged it into Half-Life by itself, as well as the cut Lost Coast level. So, pretty good deal for having all of this for free. Now, I could have just gone through the game by itself, but I've been curious about the Half-Life series for a bit now, and well, the first game and its 2 expansions just so happened to be on sale at the same time, so why not give those a crack too? This ain't my first rodeo with Valve games. I put a decent chunk of time into Team Fortress 2, and I've hammered through both of the Portal games at least twice on separate consoles. I've always been particularly fascinated by that source engine sheen, so I was interested to see if that kind of atmosphere and wonder I found so attractive in those games would be present here with the Gold SRC engine, a modified Quake engine to be exact. So let's dedicate some crazy thoughts to most of the Half-Life saga up to this point, starting with Half-Life Uno, which I have seen a playthrough or two of, but I've never played myself. Half-Life Each is where the initial Half-Life incident occurred, and from where all the preceding quarter-life consequences bore its alien fruit. You play as Gordon Freeman, a research scientist in an underground research facility called Black Mesa, trying to escape with his life after an experiment gone haywire attracts all sorts of entities, from aliens to the military to Black Ops ninjas to the G-Man. Don't ask me, I don't know what this guy's deal is. It's a simple enough premise with a simple enough story and simple enough shooty bang bang first person shooty bang bang mechanics to boot. But to my surprise, my Virgin Half-Life playthrough was one of the most fun experiences I've had in the last few years. Yes, shocking, I know, a classic in the medium of video games really does live up to its reputation, but I was genuinely impressed with how well this game has held up. The shooty bang bang has aged remarkably well, and I love how much momentum there is to the fighting, and how strategically placed that these fights are too. Like, the pacing is phenomenal. It can get pretty tough in the later areas too, but never to the point of total frustration. And even then, no matter how low your ammo count gets, and if you're just left with your dumb crowbar, you never get the feeling that you're at a complete loss. And failing that, quick save is your friend. Hell, I'm gonna risk getting put on a list for this. I didn't think Zen was that bad. But perhaps the most intriguing element of all Half-Life was its story. It may be simple and may be reminiscent of other science fiction tales, but while I didn't exactly find that source atmosphere that I love so much, I found a completely different atmosphere that I love just as much. And the supporting cast is just so endearing and well performed, and just an unsettling vibe that accompanies Freeman's journey throughout. Little details popping up here and there, and the larger scale bosses that you'll encounter really do exhibit that this mere research scientist is taking on a far greater task than anyone would ever expect of him. Like, he's a little awkward and just completely out of his element, and that's what makes him so interesting. Silence really says 1,000 words. Still don't know what the hell that G-Man guy was doing. Anyone want to fill me in? What kind of effect does he have on this? I honestly had half a mind to start up another playthrough immediately after finishing my first run, but we'll get back to that in another form at some point. For now, excellent time, highly recommended. If you haven't tried it yet, please check it out and watch out for head crabs. Following Half-Life's wide release and wide success, Valve quickly got to work on a sequel that was going to take a long time. But the crew still wanted to expand upon the Half-Life universe in the meantime, so they had another group work on a smaller scale project in the form of expansion packs. The group in question was a newly formed dev team by the name of Gearbox Software. Yep, this is how they got their start, and despite their reputation nowadays, I had become so smitten with the Half-Life framework that I needed to see what was up here. The first of these expansions, Opposing Force, sees you play as Adrian Shepard, one of the many US Marines that were sent to Black Mesa in a vain attempt to cover up the facility's stupid antics. You still do much of the same shooty bang bang stuff with a new weapon or two to mix it up, but you also get to put Shepard's army experience to good use as Gearbox expanded upon the slight commands that you could give certain NPCs in Half-Life 1. Now you can order up to a few Marines in your vicinity to assist in battles, heal you, unlock doors, be useful in any way before they get slaughtered. And that's cool and all, and the shooty bang bang does feel as tight and frantic as before, but once again, I found the story and atmosphere to be the main draw here. I like how Adrian develops here over the course of gameplay as a sort of mirror to Freeman, with him being subjected to as many harmonic refluxes that you would think combined with his previous military knowledge would be a valuable asset for the folks behind the curtain, but it appears that he grew too valuable. At least I think that's what the G-Man is implying here. Like, that guy is an enigma. I can't understand the thing he's doing. If I had to complain about something, though, I wish the last hour or so of the game was a little bit less frantic. Like, geez, I don't mind a challenge, but I was hitting that quick save faster than you could say head crack. Other than that, though, great follow-up. Following Green Force, we have Blue Shift, which came out a year and a half after and has its own development story. See, Blue Shift was intended to be a side story to complement the planned Dreamcast port for Half-Life, but that was completely scrapped thanks to the system's untimely demise, so Gearbox only put it out on PC along with a new visual patch to improve upon the game's character models. The version I played had a bit of that on display with the new scientist character, but it really wasn't anything to write home about, considering that the environments and the other visual quirks stayed pretty much the same. It's still Half-Life. And this time you play as one of the security guards, Barney Calhoun, where you have to escape Black Mesa along some of the scientists and do some more shoot, bang, gun things. You know the drill. In fact, Blue Shift is where the standard Half-Life format kind of starts being a problem. Like, you can argue that this is because I was playing these games back to back to back, but found this one kind of dull. Don't get me wrong, I still like the shoot, 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 bang, bang gameplay. It's just, the decision, or I guess the necessity to pare Blue Shift down to the basic weapons and enemies for the whole runtime doesn't make it very distinctive amongst the Half-Life series. The only notable addition that they have here is a semi-permanent escort that you have to keep safe from harm. It's not as bad as it sounds, but it's not exactly an enticing offer. But what really hurts it is the story. Like, Barney may be as silent as his fellow protagonists, and it is interesting to see a bit of a scrappier angle to getting the fuck out of Black Mesa, but he just doesn't have any distinct qualities himself. His own tour of hell is pretty rote as far as Half-Life goes, and just when it seems like we're starting to get something very interesting going on here, the credits roll. So naturally, this guy is the one who returned for the sequel, leaving Shepard in purgatory forever. The game's development background is more or less context as to why it's the least interesting part of the original Half-Life saga. Because while I haven't gotten to the PS2 version yet, I doubt Decay is nearly as boring. But now we come to the real star of the show, the long-awaited sequel that had an even more hellish development cycle, and the long-awaited sequel to my 5-minute-old critique on the first Half-Life game. I know y'all have been looking forward to it. It's been so long. There's been a lot of anticipation, but I just really wanted to make it special for you. Half-Life 2. New engine, new physics, new post-apocalyptic world ruled over by those dastardly Combine soldiers to explore, and widely regarded as one of the best games of all time alongside its brethren. I like it. Okay, so my thoughts on Half-Life 2 are a little bit complicated, and let's just get into why. The shooty bang gameplay once again feels nice and tight, and with the Source engine sheen, it feels even nicer and tighter. Those fancy physics, as shown in the game's puzzles and with the gravity gun, are also pretty neat. I sure do love dragging those boxes around and firing them boxes into the Combine. It's always a fun time. It's just, well, first off, the squad mechanics are back, and they aren't much better than they were in the first couple games. And secondly, those grenades are just way too bouncy. Like, come on, guys, they're like tennis balls. It's ridiculous. But to offer a more serious critique, the general pacing of the game just feels off. Just like how there's a heavier emphasis on physics, there's now a heavier emphasis on action. Like, the first few chapters are almost non-stop with the action, and you even get a vehicle to drive around in during the entirety of one chapter. Like, don't get me wrong, they are still fun to go through, and there are puzzles and story portions to break those sections up, but even those seem to have been dragged out for longer than necessary, and overall it just feels like the balance that the first game had pulled off so brilliantly has just been thrown away here. At least, that was my first impression. As the game went on and the story developed further, that balance did reestablish itself and the story drew me in once again. It's both really cool and very hilarious how Gordon Freeman is more or less a martyr in this universe, and the Combine are just so desperate to get rid of him and just constantly trying and failing to do so. It's also funny how those Vortigaunt enemies from the first game, the very annoying ones, are now your allies among the resistance against the Combine. It's a better idea than having Barney come back. Okay, he's fine, but still, we could have had Shepard, man. And the G-Man here is just off his goddamn rocker now. The usual aspects of a sci-fi post-apocalyptic society are also present, but they're not as overbearing as some games can get, and my rule with judging a good explorable post-apocalyptic world is, if you can get me to go, man, what happened here? You've done a good job on your world building. Consequently, the open-ended Highway 17 where you drive around in a little go-kart is probably my favorite area of the game. Go figure. Whatever annoying combat bits or gimmicky puzzle sections the game may have thrown along the way, the story more than makes up for it. I like it. I like it a lot. Oh, and the supercharged gravity gun is the coolest weapon in the series. I will not be taking any questions here. Rather than take another 6 years to develop a sequel, Valve went ahead and kickstarted a follow-up trilogy to continue the Half-Life 2 story. Each new episode with its own quirks and tweaks to the established mechanics and engine. Their decree was birthed into the world a year and a half later with Half-Life 2 Episode 1. And this ain't another alternate perspective take on the main story like with the previous expansions. Nope. We start the game right at the top of the Citadel where we had finished the first Half-Life 2, and we have to escape to the bottom of the crumbling beast alongside co-protagonist and co-shoot bank contributor, Alex. I haven't gone too much into the nitty-gritty of the story worry because it's not super complicated, and I like to leave that to y'all to witness for yourselves, but I'm gonna be honest, I kind of forgot what exactly happened in Episode 1. It's very much a transitional episode where some important stuff is revealed, and we do get a bit more on the Resistance, but not a whole lot happens in the grand scheme, and this carries over into the gameplay. It's still the same good combat from the first Half-Life 2, the pacing's more consistent as well, probably because of the short length, and I still like using the supercharged gravity gun, and Alex is pretty useful in combat. I especially like the levels around the midpoint that were designed around the flashlight. But outside of that, Episode 1 just doesn't really hold up by itself. I want to go back to it just so I could experience the wonders of shoving cars into these holes to stop these damn antlions from spawning. Maybe kind of worried about where Episode 2 was going if this was the approach that they were going to be taking for each episode. But thankfully, it is leagues better. Here, Freeman and Alex have escaped the Citadel and City 17 and the ensuing blast from the Combine opening up a big old portal above the Citadel, and now we have to locate and join back up with the Resistance in order to find a way to close that nasty thing. There's nothing really new about the shoot-bang gameplay, but it is still as good as it has been, and now we have the return of these sprawling environments and the vehicles that Freeman can use to drive around, and it offers so much more of that great environmental storytelling that I love from levels like Highway 17, and far more interesting level design. The story was a lot more interesting too, thanks to the contributions from the Vortigaunts, who really get a chance to shine after being relegated to background characters for the majority of the saga. And while there's always been a looming sense of desperation ever since the game's world started fighting against the Combine, there isn't a more heart-pounding sequence in the entire series than the game's last hour, where you drive around another open field and use a big old sticky bomb launcher to stop an incoming barrage of the Combine's most powerful enemies. I quick-saved a fuck ton here, not because I was dying so frequently, that's unrelated. No, I was just so nerve-wracked by this whole ordeal that instinct just took over. The quick-save instinct. And what did I get rewarded with after going through that nightmare? One hell of a cliffhanger that Valve intended to resolve, but ended up putting the series on hold indefinitely. I really didn't think that it was going to affect me much because I knew going into it that it was going to end on a cliffhanger, but how it ends really is that potent and a sad reminder of what could have been and what we ended up getting. It's great. Like, I might even like it more than Half-Life 2 Vanilla. And there is still more Half-Life stuff for me to go through, like seeing if Black Mesa can make an already excellent game even better like it's 2015, seeing if VR Half-Life really is the way to go with video games like it's 2020, and seeing if Hunt Down the Freeman really is the massive piece of fanfiction shit that everyone says it is like it's 2018. I'm so excited. It's good. It's really, really, really good. Just go and play it. And play the other two if you haven't already. And that will do it for this episode of Crazy Thoughts. I am planning on putting another one out sooner rather than later. I do have a glut of games from two specific creators that I want to talk about, especially in the next episode, but I promise that I will talk about those when the time comes. I'm not sure when, hopefully soon. This year has not been great, but I do feel as though I am playing more games than I did last year, so I am happy with that at least. I'm not sure when y'all will see it because I've been trying to stop outright promising shit, and I'm in the middle of two projects that I have already made promises for, so until next time, thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you later. Much better.